Hey there everybody, it's Eternal Snowman here with another episode of TLT recap and analysis, I guess this will be. So I want to start off by saying I apologize for any noise that happens throughout this episode because I am staying in another place and it may be a little bit loud and background noise. I'll try to kind of pause if there is anything that's too loud, but I do apologize for any sort of disturbance that you may hear throughout the video. So before we begin, I'm going to be explaining the format for these videos in the future. So it's going to be kind of similar to how I did the BLT recap and analysis. I'll be going through all of the important matches from the previous week and just talking a little bit about them. Especially, I think I'm going to focus a little bit more on the players, what we learned from these matches, especially early on, and then we'll move on to the predictions for the next segment. The first few videos will probably be a little bit longer because I apologize. Um, because we do have a lot more matches to go through, but as they get shorter, I'll kind of be trying to go more in depth through the storylines of each of the players. So we'll start off with the Jaren versus Principal Tacos. I did think Jaren would be a better player, and he did show it. He brought some a little bit jank teams, kind of as expected. He does prefer a little bit of the bulkier side as well, but he did manage to win in a pretty convincing fashion, and it looks like he's going to be a strong player moving forward. Satsat versus Gorefield or Dollar in the Woods. Um, this is pretty much what we expected. Satsat easily took it, and um, we should also expect Satsat to be very powerful moving forward. Hanguni versus King of Crimea. King of Crimea actually did lose his um, round 2 match already as well, so we see that King of Crimea has always been kind of an underperformer in Tours Room events now. It seems that this has kind of become a trend in the past few events. So even though he has had a really, really strong performance outside, I don't know what's really happening throughout these tournaments. Maybe it's a lack of effort. Maybe it's just happens that he gets unlucky or whatever it is. Hangwini though did definitely play solid, and I'm looking forward to seeing what he has moving forward because he will be facing a relatively easy opponent between Tactical Facepalms and PCD. Uh, and Tactical Facepalm showed that he's actually like a pretty good player. I know he did get to the Tours Classic, Tours Plaza Championship, whatever it's called. Um, Tours Plaza Classic Finals, right? And I'm interested to see how well he does moving forward because it is kind of, I think he is a relatively unknown player in my eyes. Insania 21 took care of business versus Pokior. There's not much to say there. And GXC beats the Franklin. Um, I believe uh, GXC took Argue actually. I'm not too sure though. But I'm interested to see how well he does in the future because I do really um, value him as a player, and he will be facing up against Insania 21. And the Franklin, not exactly the well, it's Arse 9, so not exactly the easiest opponent, but definitely a good win for GXC here. Pretty much proving that he can be a good player in this tournament, especially with Arse 9 coming off a really good BLT. Plumstone Punks vs. Plaza hasn't happened yet. Firsto took care of business versus Fragments. He actually did drop a game. I don't remember exactly what the reason was, but if he does continue to show vulnerability in some tiers, then maybe Fristo can be defeated as, in my opinion, the current favorite to win the entire thing, even though I don't necessarily believe that it's going to be easy for him because I think he will have to beat a lot of very good opponents, and in these kind of large style tournaments, it's hard for even the best player to win unless they're better by a large margin, and I don't think Fristo really is better by that much. But I definitely do think that he is currently the best player for this type of format. Um, and the other best players will also have to face each other soon with SMB and Nat both picking up victories. I don't know what happened in the Nat versus Ominous Draco games because they were private, but I believe Nat has a good shot in the future, and I'll talk a little bit more about SMB and Nat in the when we go over the predictions for next round. But SMB versus Lugia Numare was pretty clean in SMB's favor, so looking forward to that next match. Balor took down Cam. I don't think the games were actually public, but that is interesting because Balor really has a lot of question marks coming into this event for myself. I think he may, well, just from his reaction score, it seems like he maybe kind of has some other bases in smoke on, but I didn't really see anything that was too impressive from him before, or I didn't hear anything too impressive from him before. So if he does, beating Cam is like no easy feat. I think Cam is one of the upper tier players in this tournament. So maybe we can see some more from him, and he'll be playing against Siffy Khan, who took down Poison Adhesive, who honestly is a little bit of a surprise to me because I feel like Siffy Khan hasn't played super well, but or in BLT, but taking on Poison Adhesive, pretty good win there. So he'll be facing Balor, and I think on this match, a lot of players will, people will have, both players will have a lot to prove to see who wins. And then I beat Roginald in some solid games. I kind of choked the PU game away pretty hard, but the other two games were pretty solid. I got like potentially a little lucky, but I think even without that luck, I probably would have won those games anyway. Um, but yeah, moving on to Young, Dumb, and Woke, or on Smogon Della Rabia, beat MJ in some games that were pretty solid, and it was a little bit lucky on his side, but he did manage to beat MJ there. And then Surfy Teen beat PD, where PD, I actually think PD stock dropped significantly throughout this for this round because I didn't feel like he played well in PU at all. And while he played well in OU, I think he brought a really bad team and put himself at a huge disadvantage here. So he really did have to outplay. And although I believe he probably would have won the series because he got pretty unlucky in LC, I do think that um, he shouldn't have had to. He did lose a lot of 50-50s in that game, and I think that when you're heavily favored that much, that you should still be able to take a victory. Like, so if I'm playing Ubers against, like, say, some guy who doesn't play Ubers at all and is like kind of supposed to be not as good as me, I should be expected to take that win even if I get a little bit unlucky. And in that sense, I felt like PD should have been able to win against Surfy Teen even without, like, it wasn't outrageous. Like, it's not like he was getting hacks every turn. It was like one sequence of plays where he got flinched by Poniard a couple times. So I really think that PD could have played himself out of that position, and I do think that maybe his rating maybe on the lower end of what I was originally predicting. So I did say that he would be kind of volatile in this kind of format, and he hasn't been playing Mons as frequently as some of these other players. But that's just one player that stood out to me as someone whose stock had fallen. Cam has already also lost, so I won't talk about him, but his stock definitely fell, losing to Balor, whose stock has risen as a result. And Civic and Poison Adhesive is a very similar situation for me. And then Ham beat Sensei XU. I don't have that much to say about that as well. So let's just move on to the predictions, and we can talk a little bit further about each of the individual matchups. Akashi versus Satsu. Okay, so first off, before we start, I think this is a very interesting bracket because outside of a few matches, I think all of them can be very close. So other than like Ham and like the GXE match, well, I've heard good things about Insanity 21, so they'll really have to prove it to me. But a lot of these other matches I feel like are pretty close, with a lot of top tier players kind of matching up against each other, and some more unproven players matching up against each other. So Akashi versus Satsa, I do think that they both are very, very good players, and that they both have a good chance to take it. I'll favor Satsa a little bit though. I think he has a little bit more like kind of non-OM's experience in the sense that um, he is more in touch with, I feel like, some of these metas than Jaren is. But I think this one's very close. I'll give it 55-45 to Satsat though. I do have a lot of weight, or I'm putting a lot of weight on that kind of experience in the meta because I do think that makes a huge difference, especially when the players are close in skill level. Moving on, Hanguni versus Tactical Facepalms. Once again, I still don't know that much about these matchups because I didn't get to watch their replays that closely, but I do think that it could be interesting to see who wins this, and it'll really set the tone for how well these players will do moving forward in the tournament. Incendio 21 versus 100% GXC. I'm going to favor GXC by default here, but like I said before, I haven't seen too much from Incendio 21. However, um, you know, they could prove to be a good player. As throughout these events, there's always going to be one or two of these newer players who like prove themselves throughout this tournament, whether that's like they're new to the tours room scene or they're just basically a rising star. I do think that it's possible that Insania 21 is kind of a standout for this tournament, but we'll see as the tournament progresses, and maybe if they can beat GXC here, that'll be like a step towards being like kind of a new star in the tourist room scene. And then the winner of Plumswell Punks versus Plaz is going to play the Frisso. I expect Plaz to win, but if Plaz plays Frisso, that's going to be a very, very good match. I would still expect Frisso to win. Like I said, I believe he is the best player, but I do think that it's going to be like a very interesting match to watch. Um, Especially players like me and Plaz have a very bad matchup into Frisso because our strongest tiers often don't match up very well into Frisso, which is kind of where Frisso's main strength comes from. Basically, that he is able to play a lot of tiers at a very high level, like LC doubles, like these kind of tiers, OU, these three tiers mainly, as well as some other ones. Um, and because of that, he really can nullify a lot of strengths. So I expect Plaz would probably lock NU versus Frisso. Maybe he does gamble with the LC, but I do think that he is a little bit unfavored here, and I would favor Frisso here, like 60-40 probably. SMB versus Nat is going to be very interesting. The thing about this matchup is that SMB is almost guaranteed to take doubles against Nat, and because he is one of the top doubles players in the like on Smogon period, and I don't think Nat can really match him. But the issue is that um, for Nat, she really has to fight an uphill battle because not only does SMB have like doubles locked up, I think SMB is better at RU than Nat is at um, doubles, so that SMB actually has a chance to take that RU game. I don't think it's that high, but it actually does matter a lot, as we've seen in the past. Like I took a game off SMB in doubles, which allowed me to win the series versus him in last TLT, and this kind of thing has happened in the past where you lose your main tier, and um, even if it's like you're not that favored there, having a chance to take the other player's main tier is actually like a huge deal and can make the series go feel like a very uphill battle from the beginning. So Nat really has to win two really hard games to be able to win this series. And while she may be favored in RU, I think that the other tier is going to be pretty close. I think both players are very solid. I do think that Nat may be slightly more favored, but it's going to be very close. I think SMB should be favored in the series though, but it's going to be probably the best match of this round, in my opinion. And I'll favor SMB 55-45. And also, it means that I think both players can be considered within like the top 5 or 10 players for this tournament, so it's definitely a pretty early matchup for them. But I guess this tournament is kind of small, so it's not that unlikely. Sificon versus Balor. I did kind of talk about this before, but this will be a proving ground for both players. I think both of them will be kind of showing what they can do, and I don't really know who's better yet, but I assume Balor is probably a little bit better. I think that because he did beat Cam, and I think that Cam is better than Sipicon, that he will be favored here. But honestly, I don't know. I'm not 100% sure. Oddella Rabia versus myself. So we're going to be playing what? I believe it's going to be N or UU. UU, LC. I locked LC, he locked RU, so I believe UU is our other tier. and it's going to be interesting to see. I think I'm favored here because we did get two of my better tiers, LC and UU, but we shall see what it's going to be like. He does have a lot of hype surrounding him, and although he's not really restricted to the Toy Stream community, he can kind of be one of those players that kind of break out because who knows? We'll see. Ham versus Surfy Team. This one will definitely be favored for Ham, and I think this one is probably the most one-sided matchup of winners, which is going to be like a 90-10 for Ham. Dala in the Woods versus Prince of All Tacos. I think Prince of All Tacos should be able to win this one. I do think Dala in the Woods has a chance, but I believe Prince of All Tacos to be a better player overall. But it will really depend on what the third tier is. I think Prince of All Tacos should be able to take NU, and the other tier will be kind of determining the series. PCD versus King of Crimea actually already happened. PCD won. Yeah, not much to say, but I think I'll be kind of watching how well they do throughout the rest of the tournament because PCD has had some good performances in TLT in the past, so not much else to say there. Arsenide should definitely beat Pokeart. I think this one is one of the most lopsided matchups in the losers bracket. I think this was like 80-20 or even higher, maybe 90-10. And then the winner of Plimsoll Punks versus Flash should be better than Fragments as well. I assume it's going to be Plimsoll, but if it is, I would still favor him like 80-20 or 70-30 against Fragments here as well. And Omnis Draco should be able to take care of business versus Lugia and Numer as well. I think it's going to be like an 80-20 matchup or a 70-30. Reginald versus MJ is probably the most interesting matchup we have in losers. Both pretty good players. I think Reginald could potentially show up to be a good player in the future, and it will really depend on how seriously MJ takes it. If MJ does take this pretty seriously, or plays to more of his potential, I think MJ should be able to take this pretty easily. But if Reginald plays well and kind of has really good prep, then I do think that he has a chance to beat MJ. But I would still favor MJ here, 60-40 or 65-35. PD versus Sensei XQ. I think this one will be interesting. It depends on how well PD shows up. PD should definitely be favored here, but I think that it definitely can go either way, and it will really depend on how well PD prepares for this again. His play has been less than stellar to me so far, as I talked about before, but I do think that Sensei XU isn't that top tier player that will really punish him for that kind of play. So if he does kind of bring solid teams and do well, then he should be able to move on to the next round. But I definitely could see a world where Sensei actually definitely can take it as well. So I would say it's 60-40 in PD's favor this one, but this is really on PD to be able to prepare and not bring terrible teams like I think that his OU team was last week. Really required him to outplay, which isn't really a good look in my opinion. So with that, um, that's about it for this video. I do want to say that I apologize for the shorter videos. I have been busy. There have been other things going on in my life. So um, in 2 weeks, so starting from round 4, I'll kind of be having more consistent, faster uploads with everything. But for now, I still have other things to take care of, so I apologize for that. And I'll see you guys in the next video. It'll also probably have a little bit of background noise like this one does, but I hope you guys enjoyed. If you liked this video, then leave a like and consider subscribing. And if you didn't, then I don't know why you're still watching. Um, but until next time, um, stay happy with this kind of stuff.